Good morning, everyone. I have been so excited to share this interview with you today with two very special people who have a story so unusual you couldn't even dream it up. So, this morning, I want you to meet these two wonderful people, and they will share who they are and a little bit about themselves and their family to get started.
That sounds like a you question.
Does it sound okay? So we are Charlie and Teresa Smith. We live in Nampa, Idaho. We've been in Idaho almost our entire lives. We have a family of 3 boys, 2 of them out of the house and one of them a senior in high school. So we're about a year away from being empty nesters.
Ooh, that's going to take a big psychological shift for you.
Yep, absolutely, definitely.
One I'm looking forward to.
Yes, that's awesome. That's awesome. Some people don't prepare, and then it gets pretty scary when it all of a sudden is upon you.
Yep.
So let's start at the beginning of this story, which is quite remarkable. You had no intention of coming to Augusta. And what happened that you even first knew about it?
Augusta, the franchise. Teresa probably knew more about it than I did early on when Garrett was first looking at joining. 2018?
Probably around 2019. So I first started hearing Mike Andy's voice in our living room, probably around 2019, 2020. Our middle son had been running a landscape business since he was 15. And about the time that he was 16 or 17 years old, he told us he wanted to buy into the Augusta franchise. And so on Saturday mornings, I would hear Mike's voice coming out of his laptop as he was catching up on videos and all the latest information on Augusta. So that's probably how we first heard about it.
I hadn't heard. Yeah, I guess I'd heard about Augusta, and I heard Mike Andy's name, but I didn't know anything about it. I was pretty busy at the time. Not that Teresa wasn't; she was too. But she paid, I guess, a little more attention to what he was watching on all the videos and stuff when it came to landscape. So,
and then we both have careers. I'm a nurse, and Charlie's a real estate agent. So really, our first awareness of Augusta was through our son Garrett.
Yeah, so that was what I was going to ask next. What were the both of you doing and your current careers? And then as you moved up to hearing something about this, which is so foreign to what you guys were doing, what you thought. But first, what were you both doing?
So, Teresa's been a nurse her whole professional career. Same hospital since day one, since before we were married, I believe.
Yeah.
And she's awesome at it. She's gifted, and that was her calling. I've had several different careers, I guess. Most have evolved around business. In fact, all of them have, either owning, managing, or just doing my own thing. But got into real estate, I think it was at least 10 years ago now. And I imagine it was busy up in Washington and pretty much everywhere throughout the country. But here in Idaho, it was nuts. Those right before interest rates went up, the last 2.5 years or so were just insane. It was 7 days a week, and that's not an exaggeration. It was from the time you woke up or before till you were ready to be done for the day. It didn't matter. Someone wanted to see a house. I was in charge of a community out here in Caldwell, a new construction community, and did that for 8 years. And the amount of homes it would just sell was just nuts. So we were both pretty busy at the time.
Yeah. And then were you working 12-hour shifts, or what were you doing, Teresa? 3 or 4
Yeah,
weeks?
I do 10 or 12-hour shifts usually. At the time that Garrett first bought into Augusta, I was actually in leadership at St. Luke's. So I was managing a program, managing all of our stroke programs across 4 of our hospitals. And so I was very busy and just super engaged in that work. What?
You're modest. She built the program too.
It was a very busy time in our life when Garrett was landscaping. We also were kind of at the peaks in our career and keeping very busy.
Yeah. So what were your first thoughts? You're watching him in the living room, listen to all this stuff. And were you a little concerned? He hadn't joined yet, but were you a little bit like, is he getting brainwashed over here?
I would say I was a little surprised he wanted to buy into a franchise. And I think there was part of us that thought landscape was something he would just outgrow. Like it was fun in high school, but then you're going to go to college and kind of outgrow it. And it became clear, especially later on, that he wasn't going to outgrow it. And so honestly, he started having me watch some of the information, and he told me that Mike Andes was frugal. And so as a mom, I thought, well, that sounds good, because you have a 17-year-old kid who's trying to figure out landscaping and growing up really, really fast. And so Charlie and I talked about it a little bit, and ultimately we said, yeah, if you want to buy into the franchise, we'll support that, but we still would like you to go to college. And so that was kind of the plan that he had in place. But I think for me, it reassured me that he would have other businessmen to talk to, and that he would have the support of Augusta. So I guess we were kind of unsure of what it would look like, but still very pro college.
Right. And at that time, was he okay with the fact of going to college, or as he listened to Mike and could hear sometimes when Mike would say people didn't need to go to college? I'm sure that was very concerning to you as a parent.
I didn't hear that, and it wouldn't have concerned me because I've seen it plenty in my life that some of the most successful people, well, not even successful, but you don't have to go to college. In fact, college really can't teach you a lot of what you learn in business. It takes experience, trial and error, failing, falling down, getting knocked down, and getting back up, and learning from those mistakes or those trials. And so it wasn't, but our kids are incredibly smart, did very good in school, just like Teresa did. And so I always wanted them to at least go to college and get a degree to back up on. I didn't care what they wanted to do. I wanted them to follow their passion. But if that was something that wouldn't necessarily pay the bills, like join a band or something, that could be very tough, or an artist. It'd be nice to have something in math, science that they were very gifted at, and just to fall back on.
Yeah. So you weren't getting the sense from him that I'm trying to shirk the college thing. He was really.
No, in fact, I remember talking to him how he was going to make that work, and he was going to have his foreman run things while he was going to college and come back on the weekends. I'm like, dude, I don't think you realize how involved you'll get at school. I don't know if I ever talked to him or specifically said, hey, you should probably shut this down. And but I didn't think that would work. I thought that was going to be a pretty big juggling act to tackle. So
when he joined the franchise, he came up here with a couple of the guys that were working with him, and he was going to school. The plan was he was going to go to school and they were going to do the work. So I remember all three of them being very attentive, and he had just had an accident. And I would love to hear that from your point of view, the accident itself, and then you understanding that he had the responsibility of a business to run. And then I'll share a little bit about he had his accident, recovered a little bit, a very little bit, and then had come to training.
I mean, he had a snowboarding accident. What was it, 2 weeks before he flew up?
Yeah, he bought into Augusta in February. And then on March 6th, he was badly injured snowboarding. Lacerated a kidney, had a severe concussion. We did let him go to training, but as time went by, it became clear he wasn't allowed to be on his computer, his phone. He wasn't allowed to do any physical labor, any of that. And so over time, it became clear that he couldn't keep running the business and also recover from his accident.
Well, I mean, even when he came home, he seemed scattered a little bit. I thought I'd heard once, maybe that was just from the elevation of the plane ride, putting pressure on, swelling. I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, it became apparent pretty quickly, I think, once he got back that, we basically took over trying to run things, which was a zoo. It was chaotic. Just because he was in the middle of a couple projects.
Right.
She was busy. I was extremely busy. And unfortunately, they were doing a new install for one of the builders who just incessantly called me to manage the crew and all that. And it was just like, it was really tough.
Yeah. So
Just trying to manage all the projects while we were she was taking care of, his needs,
yeah.
other kids, and jobs. So yeah,
And
that was a tough time. It was a busy time.
We ran it for about 6 weeks, and then we just had to have the hard conversation that we just felt for Garrett to recover, and to kind of keep our family on the right track, that he was going to have to let go of this location, take some more time to heal, and he could always start again if he wanted to. But that was a really, really hard thing to tell your child who's worked so hard to build that. But it just wasn't sustainable. Charlie and I were busy enough with our careers. We couldn't keep running this location and keep it all together.
Yeah, when he came here, I think they had used a wheelchair even in the airport because of the lacerated kidney, and he was in a lot of pain while he was here. So It was him and his 2 guys that were going to work with him, who were also friends, right? They weren't related. Were they related?
No, they were not related. They were acquaintances that he had hired. Yes.
Yes. So all 3 of them had the potential really to be an owner. The way they listened and retained the information, and they were so engaged the whole time. We were very impressed by them. And when Garrett left, he sent the longest voice note I had ever heard on WhatsApp, and I think it was 7 minutes. And he had just expressed himself and how he wanted to be a part of Augusta and appreciated Mike, and that it was an answer to prayer and had put him on this right path. But I know when he got home, it could have been, just like you said, Charlie, something with the airplane ride, the stress, or the massive amount of input of all the information you get at training. And then you're a little overwhelmed, but then you get really stimulated and excited also to go back home and do this. And so then when he got home, we don't know him, so we wouldn't have known if something was a little off at training, which it didn't seem to be at all. But then when he got home, I remember from command center, you guys were trying to do all of your life and your normal things. And then you were trying to figure out the CRM, which was what he was supposed to come back and do, which is not an easy CRM. And I remember a lot of phone calls between Teresa and us, and just massive frustration on your end. And of course, we didn't know that he was deteriorating, and just a lot of, I guess, pressure on his brain, and couldn't do the estimates. You were trying to do the estimates with him. And so people look at you today and they're like, okay, what happened? Looks like you shut down the business. So is that what happened?
No. So discussing it with him, I think did he suggest that we sell it to Drew?
I think we talked about the options, and one of the options was to sell it, also thinking that would leave him with kind of a nest egg, that once he was fully recovered from his injuries, he could start over again if he wanted to. And so we did talk about it for a period of days, and then ultimately he said he was open to selling it. So we approached his foreman.
He wasn't sure, but he trusted us.
Yeah.
To make that decision.
Yeah, he did say that. He said, I don't know, but I trust you if you think that's what's best for me to recover. And so the parents of the foreman happened to be friends of the family of ours. And so we just kind of reached out, and then Charlie, I think, met up with them, and they just kind of had an initial conversation about what that would look like if they took over the business and bought it from Garrett.
I see. So they bought it, and then it was completely off Garrett's plate, but probably not for a little bit. As they tried to transfer over, there was probably still quite a bit of back and forth.
Yep, there was. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we handled most of that.
Yeah, at that point. Yeah, so there was like a transition period where Garrett and I were doing estimates together, so they would have work on day one.
Saw jobs.
And then they were able to take the employees on and a number of things. So we worked very hard to make it a smooth transition so that they were getting a business that was in good shape and ready to go.
Keep running with it and be successful. And we thought that, if they did go forward with it, which they did, I thought that'd be a good career opportunity for Drew and whatnot. We were really wanting it to, like I said, be a smooth transition for them to give them the best start we could, taking that over and being successful, taking it on from there.
Yeah. So you wanted to get him well and have him finish school and just have a baseline of good health. And then what happened then that you would be in Augusta now? And then what happened with him to catalyst that? That's quite the story.
Well, so I think Teresa probably knew that he had joined up. He'd gone to school in Colorado, where he's at now. And I think Teresa knew several weeks before I did that he had started another franchise location there, which I was like, what is going on?
I
But
bet you were a
I
little.
never think, actually, the thought I had was like, what is it with this Augusta thing that
Yeah.
he's so drawn to?
Mhm.
And I did tell Mike at training, which was a very busy, stressful week for me.
No
I
kidding.
remember telling him that the picture I had in my head was not the person that it was. Sorry.
That you
Anyway.
imagined of Mike? That you
Well,
imagined?
because Garrett spoke so highly of him, and here you're thinking this guy that's done this landscape, built this successful business, the systems. I didn't know about command or all that.
Yeah.
At the time, and you just thinking that in my mind, I picture someone that has been doing this for years and built
40,
this
50, 60 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember the first video I watched. And so how this came about that Teresa and I own the Nampa location is it came for sale about 2 weeks. Well, I think it became for sale, went up for sale probably before we considered it. But Garrett called, I was talking to him on the phone, and I remember complaining to him that, I was looking forward to a break. Interest rates went up. My phone stopped ringing that day, which was fantastic.
Yes.
It'd been several years of just nonstop work, and I was getting a little burned out from it. But 2 weeks into having nothing to do, I was losing my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I was telling him that, and he's like, Dad, you should look at the Nampa location. You should buy that. You could run that. And I'm like, my first response was, yeah, that'll go well over with your mom.
Yeah, no kidding.
We had some capital, some liquid cash that we had planned on maybe doing some flips, or I was still going to do something with real estate. But when he mentioned that, I think he sent me some links to some videos, and that's the first I really started learning about Augusta. Mm-hmm. Learning that Mike was a young man and not an old middle-aged guy like me. Mm-hmm. And I spent, I was trying to think of how many days it was. I say like 25, but it was like 25 to 28 days straight of researching this company, the systems and watching all the videos, learning everything I could about it. And it was funny, the more I watched, the more it made sense. This isn't my first rodeo. We weren't looking for a career.
Right.
I went into this more as a place to put some money and something to do, because I knew real estate's probably gonna be bad for a while.
Yeah.
Probably be bad longer than I thought now, which is fine. But ultimately I needed something to do. And I've always been involved with business in one form or another. Mm-hmm. It's actually a pretty good fit for me. Us. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're great at nursing. No, you're great at this too, but it's tough for her to do both those.
Yeah. So what did you think, Teresa?
She was on board.
So Charlie is correct. Just because he has an idea doesn't mean I'm going to jump on and say that's a great idea. Right. I'm not great with change. I love stability. So when Garrett suggested it, Charlie did realize probably the biggest hurdle would be me. To provide some background, Garrett bought back into Augusta, I think in March or April of 2022. And then the Nampa location went up for sale in May. So he had just started his Glendale location when his original came up for sale. And so that was the timing of it, why he couldn't come back here and do that. He'd already opened up this new location. When Charlie told me, I had a very sentimental moment. I will admit, the thought of bringing Garrett's business
Yeah, that was an emotional decision for her, or that sentimental decision. And it's really funny because for me, it wasn't. Never once did I think about that tie, but I understand why that was for her.
Bringing this business back into our family, it just meant a lot to me.
In a good way? Or was it
Yes.
something like, oh, that's going to bring up all the bad memories?
No, it was like it replaced those bad memories. That was really hard to encourage Garrett to let go of his dream.
Yeah.
And it was the right decision, and we felt like it was what was best for him. But we asked our child to give up all of his hard work over the past 3 years just so that his body could heal. And so when the opportunity came to buy Augusta Nampa, it felt like we were bringing it back into the family. And then it's created this really special bond with Garrett because now we're doing the same thing. And we have the same stressors and we have the same headaches, and we can encourage each other and learn from each other. And so, but I at the time thought, oh yeah, this is a good business decision. But if I'm being honest, my mama's heart was excited to have his business back in our family. It just felt like it was the way it was supposed to be.
Yeah. So that was probably pretty surprising to you, Charlie, that she would think of it that way.
Yeah, I didn't hear about that until months later when we discussed it. And it was interesting because, like I said, that never even crossed my mind. If I was going to do this, I mean, I grew up with parents that started a business from scratch, and they were gone nights, weekends for years until things got rolling. And I knew what it took. I'd worked in that business for 20 some years and been, I had a landscape company and for a few years when I was young, when we were first married. And I knew how difficult that was and what a commitment it would be. I'm 50 now. It's like, I had an established career. So it wasn't, like I said, I really researched this hard. And in the end, I just thought this was a good move for us at this time. It just the timing was right.
So when you came for training, was it really unexpected, or did it seem to fit what he had told you about, or was it very overwhelming? How did you feel when you came up for training?
For me, it was overwhelming because real estate was like in utter chaos at that point. I was still representing 7 builders, somewhere between 5 and 7 builders at the time. I had multiple listings. They were going bananas. My phone was ringing nonstop. I was really, sidetracked, I guess, that week. It just was a rough week for me. I had a couple builders just were giving me a lot of grief for stuff not selling. And yet for years we'd done really well. I told these guys, it's fine. It's hard to forecast, but I mean, it seemed like I saw this coming a year ago prior to that.
Post-COVID. So
but they just keep moving along. Well, expenses were getting higher and higher, and we were having issues with materials coming in. It was taking longer to build. Cost of building was more than double at the time. It was just ridiculous. So a few of them just kept bulldozing forward. But anyway, it was, for me, it was a really stressful week. In fact, I remember reading up on Zuper, even though we were joined Service Autopilot. That's how distracted I was at the time. Teresa was probably a little bit better, but
it helped that during that 6 weeks that we were running Augusta back in 2021, Garrett was on Service Autopilot. So the one nice thing for me was I actually had worked on Service Autopilot when Garrett owned the business. And so when we purchased it in August of 2022, I at least had a little bit of working knowledge of how Service Autopilot and some of those things work. So in some ways, I had a lot more exposure to the systems than Charlie did because I was trying to help Garrett with the transition. And then once we decided to sell it, we were helping the new owners. But it was still very overwhelming because we still were both doing our careers.
Yeah, that is just crazy, because this is a big challenge for a lot of people that do buy in. But how do you make this big transition when you have a full-time job? And the switch is very uncomfortable. So you bought a growth model, just for the listeners, correct?
Yeah, correct.
And you came in and you acclimated with Service Autopilot as your CRM.
Yeah.
Yes. And so bringing it up to today, how long have you been in business?
I'm going to say 16 months.
So 12, 13, 15 months, 16 months.
Okay. And what has the transition been between your careers and Augusta?
I wanted to like actually let my license go and then just pick it up down the road. Teresa talked me into keeping it, which is fine because, you know, I've done a few deals and we didn't need to, but they were for friends. But I kind of knew that, I mean, generally when you're buying a business, you're not buying it at its peak.
Right.
It's most profitable. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been for sale or it would have been thousands more.
Right.
So I knew there was, and I had met with him enough to know that actually watching the videos, let me back up a little bit. I made a promise right before I called Jesse back to tell him I was going to go forward with it. I wanted to go forward with it. I think I'd had my call with Lee at that point. That I was going to follow the systems Mike put in place. That was really important to me to get the business on track with doing that.
Yeah.
Get P for P, you know, do winter services. And I'm not knocking anything that Garrett did. They basically continued the model that Garrett had at the time.
They were doing a lot of projects, weren't they?
They're doing a lot of projects.
Yeah.
And I think I actually don't know if they did what, you know, I think they did. We heard they were doing good that first year. I was a little surprised to hear that it was going up for sale, but I think part of that might have been having 3 owners too.
Yes.
When we sold it, I didn't know there was going to be 3 owners. I thought we were kind of selling to Drew, and they were kind of overseeing that. That'd be tough for a new business to support 3 families right off the bat. In fact, it's a good thing that, you know, we didn't need to have support on it because we put a lot more into it than originally planned, just to get this to where we want it to be.
Right. So when you took it over, how many customers did they have? And had they run in the systems enough that you could just take over, or did you have to retrain your customers?
Well, I want to be careful what I say, but it was advertised at like low 70s recurring. And we didn't do any landscaping.
Okay.
I didn't want any projects. My goal was to get the recurring going. And then the winter services carried through the winter.
Right.
And then anything on top of that would be just kind of fill in, cleanups or blowouts or whatever else we picked up, which hasn't been much. But actually, I think when we took it over, it was more like in the low 60s for recurring. There was 0 route density. And unfortunately, a lot of them were priced really low. To where we were like losing money, like right off the bat.
Right.
Well, one of the first things we did, I think we took over 15th or 20th of August. And by October already, we raised prices. We ticked off a lot of people because we raised them
to what they should be.
Double. Yeah. But I wanted to get P for P going.
Yes.
I had hired my third employee, but first employee that worked out.
Did any of them transition over with you?
No, Drew and one other kid helped us for a couple of weeks, but it was pretty clear they were ready to move on.
Okay.
And so I started interviewing pretty much right away. So by the time we had our first employee, we raised prices and we lost like 3 or 4, like Mike would say. But I think doing it in the fall is a horrible time to do it. Yes. Because when we started up in spring this year, we were down in the 30s for recurring.
40s or 50s. Not quite 30s, 40s or 50s. But we definitely
Teresa
lost them
didn't
over
tell
the
me
winter.
right away that I was like, why are we not, you know, Pete and I started up and last time this, you know, at the end of the mow season, we were both busy. And now it's like we're working part-time. It's like, what's going on? I was trying to hire people for spring rush that was severely delayed. And I found out later that we lost quite a few but that's fine. But that was a huge shock. Yeah. In fact, that was probably the lowest point for me in this entire time from taking it over was starting up in the spring and really not having much.
So you realized I am basically starting from nothing.
Yeah, at that point, I remember thinking, I wish I had started the business from scratch. It would have been much easier, I think. Right. I've talked to a few new prospective owners. In fact, Trevor was one. I don't remember if he asked me this specifically, but when people ask us if it's better to buy an existing business or take it over, I mean, it's a hard question. It kind of depends where the business is at.
Definitely.
But in most cases, it's going to be like what we took over, possibly. And that can really set someone back financially. That can be really tough.
Yeah. So
Instead
did you have an employee then when you started Spring? And
Yeah.
what marketing did you use to try to get this ball rolling?
Well, I don't even think.
Primarily Google Local Services.
Yeah, it was pretty much Google Local Services. And then once Spring Rush hit, and it was delayed pretty bad. We started mowing too early. I mean, it was snowing on us still.
Oh, wow.
In early March, and no one complained, luckily, but it was like, yeah.
Was it snowing while you were out there mowing? We did.
Oh yeah, there was days that Pete and I jumped in the truck and just turned the heater on for like a half an hour. It was brutal.
It's pretty funny when customers call you and say, your guy is mowing my grass and it's snowing.
Yeah. And no growth.
Yes, exactly.
But that low point I was talking about was also a point where I recommitted to making sure that I just stay the course because I believed in it.
Yeah.
I felt like I'd researched this enough to know that this wasn't something like it's all laid out for you, the roadmap.
Yeah.
And if you follow it, it will work. It may not grow as fast as you want or as big as you want, but if you stick to it and concentrate on the things that are important, like route density, that it will come together. And it did all in this last year, which I didn't think would happen. I thought it would take a couple of years, especially starting out where we did. And I mean, just anytime anything new, the door hangers, we hit it at the right time.
Awesome.
We hit communities we already had people in. That's one thing. If I would tell people, that say door hangers don't work, I think if you go to an area or community that you're not in at all, I think your conversion rate is going to be a lot lower than if you go to one you have 3, 4, 5, 6 mows in already, because you're known there, you're seeing, especially early on in your business. And the P for P came. I was telling Teresa the other day that I can't believe that our first employee that we have still stuck with us, because I couldn't figure out why P for P wouldn't work, but there was way too much windshield time. And we had to drop some mows that we had raised a couple times now at this point. We had a couple out by the lake that, even though we'd probably raised them $60 or $70 a cut, still weren't profitable, just because of how long it took to get out there, how much grass there was to deal with. Like, you had to dump the grass after those 2 yards.
Exactly.
You had to realize that, even though it was a roadmap, you got to figure out, all right, that just isn't working. We got to cut our territory down, stuff like that. But thank goodness at least I got to see some of that come together this year, because it really helped solidify my belief in it, my faith in it, and making this decision.
Yeah. So Teresa, what has your role been for the last 16 months?
So a lot of what I have done is manage service autopilot, payroll, insurance, workman's comp, kind of like all the office type tasks, so that Charlie can be free to work with our employees, our equipment, and our customers. It's worked reasonably well, but I think right now we're at a phase, at least our goal is by the end of this year to transition some of that office work to Charlie, or all of it, which would be great. I continue to work as a nurse, and we've got 2 great team members. We've made a lot of progress, and I think it will be simpler for him to have oversight to everything, because our life is busy and sometimes we miscommunicate, because I've got one thing figured out, but I don't see him because he worked late. And so I think having all the information in one brain will be a benefit to our business.
There's definitely a disconnect of not running it all, even though she does that part of it very well.
Yes.
Made it work. I don't always know if we're profitable this next month or this month. I don't know where our account is unless I'm physically checking. I don't know what bids came in or what issues, because I hadn't had to deal with all that. And I feel like we're kind of at the point now that I don't know how much I can step out, but I definitely need to start taking that over, because then I'll understand the rest of the pieces that are missing.
Yeah.
Me.
So this is
just getting it going and getting some good. I feel fortunate. We have two really good guys.
Yeah.
And one of the challenges too, when this came available, from the day that we kind of said, should we do this, to the day that we bought it was only like 3 weeks. And we both still had careers. So it wasn't like it had to be divide and conquer. I mean, we just had to each take a section of the business and own it. But now that Charlie is really doing less real estate and really focused mostly on Augusta.
One last closing next week.
Yes, he is. He's closing on a house next week, and that should be the last one for a while. We feel like we're finally at a place where it really should be the majority him.
Yeah.
And he can totally handle it. And I do think it will be better. We made it work because, again, we never planned to buy in Augusta. It was something that just came into our lives and we decided to go for it. But I think it will be better having one person primarily run it. And that frees me up to continue to do what I enjoy. I love being a nurse. I love being a mom.
Yeah, you got plenty of other responsibilities.
We've got a son getting married next spring. Like, we have a lot going on in our family. So I think it'll be great for Charlie to kind of take over the reins.
I'm actually looking forward to it, just so I have like the big picture, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. So this is a really critical time where a lot of people either fall apart or it gets better. Because the same with Mike and I, every time you start something new, it's like, what are you going to do? And what am I going to do? And what are you going to be responsible for? And what I'm going to be responsible for? And then you transition. And during that time of transition, like you giving everything over to Charlie, you start to step on each other's toes, because you're trying to do some of these things to help transition it to him. And he's trying to get his head wrapped around everything and take it over. And it sounds like you guys have a good plan. So that you're not stepping on each other's toes, but it will probably happen a little bit because you're still trying to make sure everything gets done.
Yeah.
I think communication will be key. She'll want to know where things are at, how things are going. There's nothing wrong with that. And I don't want this to seem like it's a slight, or because I needed her expertise and her help this entire time, because it was a lot to take on. But yeah, she's a mom first and a nurse, and then to have two careers or two job responsibilities on top of that is asking a lot from her. Yeah. And again, also, I feel that I will benefit also from taking those duties over. I'll be more on top of dealing with, complaints or bids and that stuff. Some of that stuff falls through the cracks for a few days, unfortunately, because I'm like going 100 miles an hour here. She's trying to tell me, hey, this came through, these came through, got to get on these. So that disconnect would be great to eliminate, for me at least, running this.
Yeah, for sure. So at this point, how many employees do you have? Where are you with recurring services, customers? And then do you do cleanups, bark installs, or where are you with projects?
So recurring, no budgeted hours, but where are we at with recurring?
So we headed into the fall with about 120 recurring customers. And then it trickled down in September and October.
Which happened last year too.
Yeah, but I would say 120 was about where we were at in August, when we were, hopefully kind of at our peak.
Yeah.
We do a little bit of cleanup. We have, other than the one commercial property we got rid of, which we didn't ever get sued.
Yeah.
Right. I figured it was a lot of fluff and talk, but we do have a couple, a really small commercial property that's just I'm not even sure what that is.
Oh, I don't know either. That's like a beauty salon or something.
Yeah. And then
like a business complex or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then a Burlington, which is actually quite large.
Yeah.
It's fairly easy to manage during the year because it's just maintenance. There's no lawn. It's just all shrubs.
Okay.
And so it's just drip line for the sprinkler system. It's a big cleanup. We nailed it this year. Last year was a disaster. but we picked up the bid in November or end of October and didn't start till November. We got snowed on every time we showed up.
Oh man.
And it froze, and we trimmed everything, and then it froze to the ground. It took me months to get it cleaned up. Teresa, yeah, I spent way too many hours on it. And so I had no clue if we were going to nail that one this year, and we did. It was fantastic.
Great.
So, but yeah, I mean, the recurring is what we've pushed the most, and it was nice to have that growth.
Yeah.
Part of it was just density coming together, and
right.
then we just kept picking up. We probably averaged somewhere between 4 and 6. It seemed like 4 and 6 new yards, like every week, all the way through August.
You think that was from the door hangers and the Insta quotes?
Some of that. It's hard to see how much of that compounded, but yeah, I mean, our densest community is right across the street from us.
Awesome.
And we started with a couple in there, and I don't know what we ended with, but I mean, all within a half-mile radius of where we live, or 3/4 mile, is probably a good chunk of our mows, which is fantastic for the guys. I thought they would get super bored.
Yeah.
Just not having to drive much and this and that. They ate it up. Once the P4P kicked in,
so great.
It just clicked, and it was so cool to see that.
Yeah. How did you get it to click for them? Did you have them watch the videos that Meg made specifically for employees?
I had meetings. I went over it, talked to them, told them how it worked, did the breakdowns, the math, all that. And eventually it sunk in.
Awesome.
But it didn't materialize until, when did that come together? What's funny is I finally raised the percentage of revenue I was paying our original guy, because he just wasn't, I mean, he was barely hitting, and this guy is fast. I mean, he's very efficient. And for him to not hardly hit P4P, I knew it was a density thing at that point. It was too much drive time, but it was like literally 1 week I raised him, and the next week it just started coming together. And so his paycheck started skyrocketing, which was fantastic. I'm great with that.
Yeah.
I'd like to pay the guys 40 or 50 an hour if it comes to that someday.
Yes.
I mean, it's a grind. It's hard work, and they're out there representing you.
Yeah.
I like that side of business, nurturing those employees and helping them grow and seeing that growth in them. Just with him, he's never had to, I think I've talked about this maybe once in a post. He didn't have to interact with customers. He's done landscape or mowing his whole career, and it's always been commercial. You just get on a riding mower and you go mow these HOA areas and whatnot. So I remember the first few times a customer would come up and talk to me, even if they were giving him a compliment, he just would get irritated and freeze up. He wasn't sure how to handle that. And to see where he is now, and now he knows how to answer some things. That's really cool.
Yeah.
But all that came together because of just, the growth and the density.
Yeah, I think the key was about midsummer. We finally had the route density we needed. We had the pricing we needed. And then we also started doing manual adjustments for going to the dump to dump grass. Because in Idaho, you have to collect clippings, so they can lose up to an hour. And so once we figured those things out, all of a sudden their checks started going up, and then they believe. I don't know if you can ever get an employee to really fully grasp P4P until they start seeing it in their bank account.
100%.
They start seeing it, and they know that if they send us a text about their manual adjustment, that correlates into an increase in pay. I think that really helped a lot.
The updates on the app and whatnot that we've had that's been, I wasn't sure if that would create some tension, because pretty much you're not going to touch Pete. He's just too fast. And yet it's done exactly what it's designed to do. It's motivated guys to find ways to be more efficient, cut a couple minutes off. And it's also weeded out the ones that try to beat the system.
Yes.
Because you get called out. We get calls on it. You just get the whole thing of trimming in the backyard. Yeah. Because they're trying, the ones that get frustrated, I've learned that you have to let it come organically.
Yes.
It takes time, because if you've never mowed for a business, you're not going to know how to be efficient.
Exactly.
And to this day, even seeing Pete, how he doesn't ever want once we give him a yard, he wants at least 4 or 5 mows with it because he breaks it down differently 4 different times into quarters, and he times it, which way is the fastest.
Mm-hmm.
There was one yard I was talking to him when he was telling me this last summer, and he cut it was like 14 minutes off. And it was just like, how do you do that? But that's
so
what it, but I didn't teach him that.
Yeah.
He didn't used to do that before, but that's what it does is that, these guys, once they learn and it kicked in, it's been fantastic. That's been a huge, huge part of, it'll be a big part of our success, I feel like.
Yeah, we feel like it's not until they get their first P4P, and then it's like a fire is lit under them, and they get it. And then from then on, they're teaching other people, they're talking about it, and it's pretty phenomenal what happens. I remember when we tested it, and one of the guys told me, I just can't believe it. He's like, I rethink everything I do now to lessen steps that we have.
Not everybody's going to catch on that way, though.
Exactly.
But that's okay. That I want the highest performers, and I'm willing to pay them what they're due, and then some, I hope.
Yes,
because,
exactly.
It's worth it. They're making you that money. It's it's a great system, without a doubt. You see on the lawn care forum so many times that people, I think, implement it partially or can't, or just give up on it. I think a lot of that, there's just a lot of variables to it, but part of it's probably just not having that windshield time.
Yes.
That's a big part of it, because it did not come together right away, even though we tried to implement it.
Yeah, that's good. So let's switch a little bit to Command Center. So those who don't know, Command Center is a place where we answer the phone, do the estimates, and any office task imaginable, but they're a la carte. So a growth franchisee can choose what they want, not have what they don't want. And at different times, if they're hating emails, they can hand it over to us. And if they're feeling like they're good with it, they can bring it back. The ones who aren't comfortable with figuring out P4P, they can hand that to us and they can do what they like. So for you, has there been a lot of handing over and taking off, or do you kind of know what you like and you only use certain services with Command Center?
I'm pretty sure we use almost every service that you guys offer. It's just, I would spend more money, trying to take care of a lot of those things, or that I just don't like, just even organizing or checking the emails throughout the day, or just having the Connect team and letting us know something's going on or whatever needs our attention. That's fantastic. Let alone answering the phones. I mean, I can remember the first time I ran a business, I didn't have these systems. I didn't have any of this.
Yeah.
And it was chaotic. I was answering the phone all the time. And I always hated how disruptive that was.
Can't get anything done.
No. And it kind of like, you got to reset, and it's like, okay. And it's huge. I mean, for us, I have no problem having them take care. Now once I take over everything, I might bring some of it in just if I feel like I'll be able to manage it better or quicker on a more timely basis. But that would be the only reason.
Yeah. So Teresa was doing payroll. Are you still doing payroll, or are you about to transfer?
When I say payroll, what I mean is I know when it's coming. I check on it. Command Center does all of it.
Okay.
But I at least know it's coming. I check the guys' time cards. I make sure everything looks accurate. And then I say, yes, go ahead and run it. We ran a landscape business in our late 20s, and I did payroll then, and it was a nightmare. And I would never do payroll completely by myself, because getting each of those taxes exactly right can be painful. So Command Center does payroll, but it's the area that I keep track of, the time cards, all of that, and make sure that things come together and look good before it goes out. But my recommendation to any owner would be to let Command Center do payroll. Let them keep an eye on your emails, because they tell you where the hot spots are. Answering the phones is amazing. It serves as a buffer between us and our customer. Sometimes our customers are unhappy. When Charlie's working super long days, he doesn't really need to hear from the angry customer. It's nice to have that buffer. It really helps protect you and keep you just working and focused on the task at hand. So I think Command Center to me is the gold in Augusta. It's phenomenal. There's no way we could have done what we did buying this without
I
Command
don't know if I
Center.
would've.
It would have been a nightmare. We did it. It was hard, but every single day we were in contact with Command Center, and they are so gracious
Oh my
and so
goodness.
kind and so knowledgeable. And they were my lifeline. The first few weeks were exhausting, and they would literally just encourage us and lift us up and solve our problems. And so I don't ever plan on buying another business in the future. But if you're going to do it, Augusta is the way to do it, because they help you all along the way and they keep you sane.
That's good. So your goal for next year, are you wanting to be in growth mode, which we know sucks cash and is pretty stressful, or are you trying to just maintain where you're at throughout next year?
I'm fine spending our cash but yeah, actually I'm hoping that we have another growth year like we did this spring. And if we do, we'll probably pause there for a couple of years. I'd like to get some of my money back.
Yeah.
We would like to get some property at some point. Maybe an empty lot or a shop too.
Mhm.
I know that's not right for everybody, but I'm a big believer in owning property.
Mhm.
It's just there's a lot worse investments out there, and there's not many that are better.
Yes.
And for us, long term, it'd be a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
But oh man,
Do you think there's
I was thinking of something you said. Just talking to Garrett, just being a solo model,
Yeah.
the difference between and everything we take over. And I'm just like, I don't say much to him about it, but I can't wait till he buys that growth and sees what they can take over for you. And how
Yeah.
much time that can free up.
Mm-hmm.
I can't stress it enough. I mean, you did a good job with it, but Command Center's huge. Everybody there just is fantastic, awesome, and deserve all our gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
So for those listening, the solo model, they need to do all those tasks themselves, but we do answer the phone. But then we expect them within 2 years to move over to the growth model. And once they do, they get the full support of Command Center.
Right. Good clarification.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So people would wonder what
Yeah.
transition to.
Yeah.
So how do you is there a sweet spot for a number that you feel like you'd want to get to before you just try to stay level for a few years?
I used to think so because I mean that's what you're taught, right?
Yes.
And there's levels of growth. But if you have good route density, if you don't have a lot of debt, if everything's streamlined and running well, I actually think you could probably pause in the mid twos to the 500-600 range and turn on profit.
Mm-hmm.
And if you need to, if for the cash, then it's been proven over and over and over again, raise your prices.
Yes.
And just immediately start making that income. We don't have to, but I'm ready to. I'm ready for the business to support itself. We did finally turn a profit. I don't remember what month, but it took longer than we thought.
Yeah, but it's pretty incredible. I mean, it was not a long time, really.
No, I would have had to take on a lot of projects, landscape stuff that I wasn't willing to do, not willing to put my body through. Probably can't handle at this age anymore with my back and all that. I've had a lot of surgeries. I wasn't willing to do that. So I was fine carrying it as long as we had to. It just, but every month that you're carrying it, it's like, it doesn't sit great.
Yeah.
Especially as you're growing. It's like, okay, when's this going to start kicking in? But it finally did. And we're profitable now as a growth mode, not as much as I would like to be. So I can realize now I've already found some ways to cut some costs on our storage units. I'm just going to keep looking for ways to cut expenses where I can. We have our third truck finally.
Awesome. How many trucks do you have?
So we have 3 now.
And 2 guys and you?
Yeah. So I was up to 4 guys and 2 of them didn't work out. Towards the end of the season. At that point, I was just like, I'll take over their job, and just save that money. And it's too hard to try to hire someone that late in the season that you only need for a month or 2, especially it's just tough hiring anyway, but you can find them. You just keep looking.
Exactly.
Man, I feel really blessed. We got a couple of great guys, but so we'll see where the dust settles.
Yeah.
I don't have a number. I used to have that number in my head. It doesn't matter to me now. Wherever we end up, we'll get rid of the ones we don't like, or they're not, too far out. It doesn't make sense. We'll keep pushing the density, but yeah, we'll go into growth and just grow slowly for the next year or two. Bank some cash, personal cash, we put into it. I don't have to get it all back right away, but I'd like to get some of that. Just like I said, so we have those options to do some land purchase or something down the road.
Yeah. So I love that, because you're pivoting as you need to, as you go along, and tweaking. And so is your goal to get completely out of the field and then just
definitely. That was my goal before I even made the decision. This isn't something I wanted to run for myself. I'll run it as long as I have to, or build it. I've told Teresa many times now, I think probably the toughest position to hire will be a GM.
Yes, for sure.
Not that, just someone that can manage things. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It takes some, you can learn a lot of it. I mean, you guys, the corporate locations have some fantastic GMs. They're out there. You can find them.
Or you bring them up from who you have on the team. Yeah.
So far that hasn't materialized. I talked to, either they're not that caliber, which is fine. And they're fine with that. I always give people an opportunity or talk about that.
Yeah.
But the one kid that I would consider, putting in that role at some point, he's got other aspirations. So we have him for another year until he graduates high school and goes off to college.
Do they listen?
I'm fine with that. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Do they listen to any of the content?
Yeah, I've talked about it. I used to push it a lot harder.
Yeah.
I can't force them to do it.
Nope.
And that kind of tells me how interested they are. I have the other side of the spectrum where they won't shut up about it. And yet then I kind of feel like I've learned sometimes, well, they don't even want to work their way up. They want that, make me an estimator right now.
Right.
Those have been some of the not as good employees.
Yes, exactly.
So I don't bombard them with it in the beginning, because there's a lot.
It is.
But I definitely talk to them about it. Bring it up. Truthfully, the one thing that's been probably the best received so far has been the 3F program. None of them are taking me up on it yet, but that's like with this other kid we have. That's definitely piqued his interest. And who knows? He might go to school and realize he doesn't like it, and I'd hire him back.
Yeah,
He's
that's
fantastic.
true.
Great.
So a couple more questions about that. How has your relationship with Garrett been since you've joined Augusta, and how has it progressed over time as you both grow your businesses?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, in the very beginning, it was, I relied on him pretty heavily. I mean, he was like all knowledgeable about it, and I was trying to get up to speed. And then there probably came a point where I realized, like, he still has to make his own decisions for his business, for his territory, and they won't necessarily align with mine. It's something I remember butting my heads with my dad a little bit was, I think as you get older, I'm okay with slower growth, focusing on recurring and not all these other jobs, following the systems to the T, and being successful at it. I don't have to build this empire. I want to build something that makes us money, and that provides a great career for those who want to be a part of it.
Yeah. So if he watches you gradually do this and make money, it's going to start making sense to him. Simple services, recurring, customers. And you know what? Everybody has to learn that on their own. I learned that the hardest way until we had huge projects that were just, money sucks.
Well, and I don't want to say I have all the answers, and I'm definitely going to tackle things differently.
Yeah.
But I remember being that age and having all that energy and wanting to take on all that. But there'll come a point where you probably look back and realize, man, but to be fair, we could carry this for a couple of years if we had to. Not everybody's in that position.
Yes, exactly.
In fact, most people probably aren't.
Right.
So I hope I try to remind myself not to let that hinder our growth at all
Yeah.
or trajectory, but I don't have that pressure.
Yeah. So just like in every relationship, you're very careful to keep your relationship with a son as a son, and then realize that he is a different business owner
Yeah,
than
that's more important to me.
yeah.
I mean, I want him to be successful without a doubt.
Yeah.
But yeah, he goes some directions that I probably, well, I mean, I wouldn't at my age or in my territory, but I'm not there. I'm not, I don't deal with the same pressures he does.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to give them that leeway. They got to grow and figure some of that stuff out on their own. You can try to protect them as much as you can. I think most fathers will do that, but that only goes so far. They still need that experience, that real world experience of figuring out what works, what doesn't.
Yeah. So your long-term big, hairy, audacious goal, your 10-year goal, is it to just keep this one location, grow it, and then just stay at a steady, or would you consider starting another one if you had a good GM?
I would start a couple maybe, but they would be butt up against the Nampa.
Yeah. Okay.
I have no interest in going to a different state or going to Twin Falls or somewhere, hours away. Not to say that wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
But I just don't, I like the model that you can build right now.
Yeah.
And I don't even need multiple locations. I know that I think most territories are probably good, especially with this setup. But I've been selling these homes here for years.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of retired people with money that moved here, and they've always paid for lawn care. And that was a big factor in my decision probably too. Just knowing that this territory can support, and you could run this here and be profitable. And that's my ultimate goal. I don't have to have the multiple locations. In fact, that seems like a headache. I get that entrepreneurial spirit, but man, I'm okay with one making me this much right here.
Yeah.
I don't have to have two that make me just that much.
Totally. Yeah.
And 3 times a headache.
Yeah. 100%.
I'd rather just keep streamlining this one and just keep making it profitable and just keep slow growing.
Yeah.
I'm great with that.
Yeah.
That's probably how it'll end up, but who knows?
And I think that was the other interesting thing. When we bought it back in August of 2022, I naively thought we'll just hire a general manager, we'll create passive income, it will be amazing. Now we'll have we'll have 3 careers basically. We have a business, real estate, and healthcare all feeding us. And it doesn't quite work out that way. And I think one thing that Charlie has really taught me over the last year and a half is that in order for us to really get this business where it needs to be, we have to know it inside and out. And so not that this couldn't work for some people, but for us, we didn't hire a GM right away. It didn't come together. In the end, I think Charlie's right. We should run it, understand it, grow it, nurture it. My big goal is still to hand it over to a GM. We both turned 50 this year. We're apparently not getting younger. We're getting older. And I want to goof off more and have some fun. And so nursing is the kind of profession you can work a day or 2 a week and then not show up the rest of the week. So my big hairy, audacious goal
more, but I couldn't even go
is that eventually it would be a GM. Because that would give Charlie and I some freedom to do some fun things and hang out with our kids and all of that. But again, I thought day one we would hire a GM. I think in the end that wasn't what was best for us.
Right.
We definitely had to be hands-on, and I did not realize that going into it. I think I was pretty naive.
Well, I did, because how could I let a GM run something that I didn't fully understand myself?
Yes.
I had to get out there and mow. I got to know what these guys are dealing with. I got to know how frustrating it is that you deal with the same yard with 3 feet of dog poop in the back,
Yeah.
I get it. Let's drop them, and we can, knowing how all the ins and outs of it, I think it's been a priority for me.
Mhm.
And then I feel like I can best set up someone else to manage that for us.
Mhm. So if you had to do this all over again, starting Augusta, is there anything you would do differently?
Yeah, start from scratch.
Start from scratch. So you would have probably said, I'll pass on that territory, but if it's actually closed down, I'll
Well,
start.
no, I would have wanted the territory, but I wouldn't have tried. I mean, I'll admit I wasted money trying to figure out what mowers do we need, what equipment do we need, what trailers
Right.
do we need. I bought a ramp rack that I realized, we can't go to the dump 3 times a day.
Yes.
I'm still trying to figure that out. I'd love to get rid of the trailers.
Yeah.
There's got to be a way. So, but yeah, it would have been better to start for me starting from scratch. So I learned that from the beginning, learned everything from the beginning instead of feeling like I was always playing catch up, always running 100 miles an hour, which is all right.
Mm-hmm.
What I do, but it felt a little chaotic at times for sure.
Mhm.
And I definitely wasted some money trying to figure out how to get it streamlined.
Yeah. Well, it's really awesome to hear the story of people that have other careers and that the experience you've had in those other careers aren't wasted really. Because all of that seems like it's given you a lot of wisdom these last couple of years to run this business. And it sounds like you're doing incredibly well. You seem very steady and settled and have a good vision of the future.
Yeah, I don't have high highs or high lows and low highs. I'm probably pretty, yeah. But no, I mean, I appreciate that. We're doing it different probably than a lot of other people are. And
Say so.
we can,
Yes.
but I don't want to kill myself over the next 5 years figuring out that this is how I should have done it from the beginning.
Yes.
It's seriously, it was a promise I made that if we were going to go forward with this purchase, we were going to keep it simple, streamlined, and profitable. That's always been my goal, not to build things and do 100 different jobs. And that's great if that's what you have to do. That's just what it takes.
Yes.
We're in a unique position where it didn't. So we came into this definitely with a different mindset, probably.
Yeah, I would say so. So do you guys listen to any kind of podcast or anything like that you would recommend to somebody else that would really help them be more
I
like
try to. I'll admit, I'm like the worst person to be out in the field because I care way too much. I mean, I can't help but pull weeds and do stuff that we shouldn't do. And I make the guys look bad. And so it's like, I just got to concentrate on mowing. And if I listen to a book, I'm probably just one track mind type person.
Okay.
I either do the job and I put everything into it and I can block everything else out. I put a book in and I'm there for 3 hours and should have left 2.5 hours ago. So it didn't work well. I tried to. I'll listen in between like some drives or to the shop and after a meeting and whatnot. I try to, but yeah, I'm the kind of person that likes to pick up a book or list, go right through it.
You probably aren't like some of the younger guys that feel like, oh my word, I don't know very much. And so they feel almost a pressure. I've got to be listening all the time so I can learn about business. But you've experienced a lot of that already.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to make it sound like I know it all because I don't. I've had to adjust my mindset on. I've never hired blue collar type workers in the past. It's always been a more professional setting, and I had to look at that differently. I had to look at, just like I said, getting out in the field and seeing what they go through and understanding, like, man, they didn't mean to break that. They're just hauling butt. It's 110 degrees outside, and I'm not gonna beat them over the head for, it's an expensive repair, but whatever. Yeah, there's a lot of experience and patience that comes with all of my past career. I have to give shout out to my late dad that he taught me most of what I know. He's the most patient guy, an excellent listener. So I've always tried to hear before I speak.
Yeah.
Speak less.
Yeah.
And hear what people are saying, So that's always helped me in the sales side of things. Helps you diffuse, difficult situations, all that. Yeah. All that's played a part. And for someone who's in their 20s and 30s or just starting out, that's their first career or job, maybe even. Yeah, I could see feeling lost somewhat.
Yeah, that's so helpful. What you just said, that would be a good place on a platform that you could share with others. And what about a quote or anything like that you've kind of kept tucked away as an inspiration?
I am not a quote person, only because I've never liked quotes are great. I love when people give me quotes, but it's like one little piece of the big picture.
Totally.
And so I thought, well, okay, there are some great quotes I like. I thought, oh, I'll just come up with one. But if I have to be honest, it's like, I don't have any that I live by. I've got stories and I've got experiences that I live by. And I love hearing people's quotes. I'm not that way. So I don't have one. Maybe you do.
I should have prepared for this because I know the one that I like. And Liz, you actually used it, I think not at this last conference, but the year before. The first time I read it was when I read Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. And it talks about the honor going to the person who's in the arena, who is sweating and fighting valiantly. And then even if you don't succeed, at least you were there and you tried. And I wish I'd gone and read, had this ready so I could read the actual quote. But when I was in leadership at the hospital, that was the quote that always encouraged me, because there were days you just felt like you were fighting on all sides to get your project to completion. And you had all these people throwing up obstacles, and it just made me realize you just have to keep pushing through, because you know that what you're trying to accomplish will be a benefit. So that quote, and I think is it Roosevelt that said that?
Yeah, it's called The Man in the Arena.
Yes. So that is the quote that I often read when I was in leadership. And that's the quote that I think of when I think of Augusta Nation, because that's what each of these locations are doing. They are in the arena.
Yeah.
And as someone who also works for a paycheck, it's way easier to have a paycheck,
Totally.
right? You show up, you work your 10 hours, the money shows up in your bank. But when you own a business, you are the man in the arena, and it is brutal, and you will work so hard and sometimes not get paid at all. And that is a very different world. And so I think that's the quote I like.
That's a quote I think of. My dad would say, running a business would be the hardest thing and the most rewarding thing you ever do.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Well, I have no words to thank you for your time today. I know you guys have very busy lives, 3 businesses running. And I just knew that your story was so unique, but it will give people hope on so many levels and so many angles of your story that are unusual. So I really
wanted to do this too. I'm sorry it took so long, but you doing these videos is the best way I've learned who these other owners are. Like, I got to start watching some of them again, because I forget part of it. That's fantastic. Way of
and you
doing
would
this.
never meet these people, and they would never share that much at conference or summit or anything.
Definitely. I'm not one that shares a lot. So
most of us aren't.
Yeah, I don't, I'd rather other people, I like getting other people to talk. That's just what you do. But
and then now when they see you, they can go, wow, that one thing you said, or, that really helped me. And so I know that's the benefit that it will be, and people will probably reach out to you too.
If you can help anybody in this business, we're always lending ear, always. But we're still learning ourselves too, every day.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you having a part of Augusta Nation. It's only going to get better as we all grow and get better at what we're doing. So I'm excited about the future.
We're totally stoked. There's no doubt in my mind we made a good choice. Good decision for us.
So good to hear. And I'm so glad. Okay, I'll let you go. You guys have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Liz.
Thanks so much, Liz.
Thank you.